Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a yoga teacher, a mom of 3, entrepreneur, and forever curious student with a lot of questions. This podcast is being recorded on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash unceded First Nation. I want to tell you, before we get into the yoga pep talk or the pep talk for yoga teachers today, I want to tell you something I learned this week in this work that I'm doing at M'Wikwedong, which is it goes by so many names. Some people call it an Indigenous Friendship Center. It's a place where lots of First Nations people, Anishinaabe, can connect more with resources and people who are really trying to hold their culture alive. So I have this short-term job. It ends actually at the end of April, so at the end of this month if you're listening in real time. And I've learned so much there. And this week I learned more about bannock, which if you've never tried bannock, it's a traditional food among the First Nations people here on Turtle Island. I had it when I was growing up, like at camp, but nobody ever really explained a lot about it. And so I'm super grateful for a person that I work with who told me, like, don't cut bannock with a knife, but instead tear it by hand when you're eating it. And I looked into this further and took their words. And I just wanted to share this because I think if you live on Turtle Island, like if you live anywhere in North America, or you live somewhere that dealt with colonization, which is a lot of the world, I think it's really important to learn about the culture of the people who were there first. So for me, that's the Anishinaabe people. For me, this is truth and reconciliation that I'm committed to. It's the work. And it's also fun to learn things like this. So I learned this really cool thing that instead of cutting bannock with a knife, when you tear it, it symbolizes community, connection, sharing, and unity. And this represents sharing in a real personal and meaningful way as everyone is taking from the same piece of bannock. So actually this week, someone that I work with made some bannock for some kids, and they made this giant one in an outdoor fire, and then they used a cast iron pan to make it. And it was just really fun to take a piece off of it, and everyone else was doing the same thing. In some cultures, cutting bannock with a knife is believed to cut through the spirit of the bread. It's disrespectful to like this living thing. And instead, tearing it by hand really honors the food as a gift from the land. I loved learning that. And First Nations people have passed down the practice of breaking bread by hand for generations. And they've kept this tradition alive as a way of respecting their ancestors and the culture. I also loved learning about bannock in terms of like what it's made out of and how it's a symbol of resilience. So it became a survival food for many Anishinaabe First Nations communities here, especially during colonization. So during colonization, the colonizers were cutting access to traditional foods. You'll see this in, like, a great example of this is what we're witnessing right now, what's happening in Palestine. Olive trees are being cut down, farms are being destroyed, land is being destroyed, water is being destroyed. It's an act of war. It's an act of violence, not only against people, but also the land. And so before colonization, bannock was made with traditional ingredients, maybe cornmeal, ground plant roots and tubers, sunflower seeds, squash seeds, wild rice flour here in Canada. And then they would add herbs, berries, honey, maple syrup to add flavor or sweetness. And now, traditionally, bannock is made using wheat flour. But it's amazing to see, like, the impact of colonization. And then to think this is a food that came from colonization, but it also helped people to survive. And because it was made from these really basic ingredients that most people can get a hold of, flour, water, oil. If you're lucky, then maybe milk instead of water. But it became this real symbol of resilience and adaptability. And you can often see bannock shared now at powwows, at ceremonies, at gatherings. And so I encourage you to do more research into bannock, or maybe there's another traditional food or plant that grows near you that you want to learn more about. And I really encourage you to try making some. And I'll tell you, I can share my favorite recipe so far that I found. I am definitely nowhere near like an expert bannock maker. And it's okay if you mess it up. I sure did. I made a batch of bannock. And the director of our center was the first person in the kitchen, and I shared it with her. She was just like, this definitely needs more butter. It was quite dry, my first batch, and I was like a little bit horrified because, she like runs the center. But I thought, you know what? I'm just going to look up another batch online. You can make it really fast. And this one was much better. When I called it bannock, some people were like, I don't know, Shannon, this is more of a biscuit. So give it a try. Learn more about a kind of food. Learn the tradition and the culture behind it. Yeah, that's my personal story, my personal share. If you're brand new to the podcast and this is the first episode you're listening to, I don't normally talk about bannock, but we always talk about yoga and yoga teachers. And mainly this podcast was created because I know what it feels like to be out in the jungles of teaching yoga and running a business. And this episode came out of like, okay, I'm in the thick of a struggle and I need a pep talk. This podcast was also created because I wanted yoga teachers, while you're busy and on the go and going to classes and doing all kinds of things in your busy life, I wanted you to have access to ideas, resources, and a supportive community. And I wanted this access to be free, and you have the ability to listen on the go, pause, go back, go have a look at the show notes, and it's all there for you. So today's pep talk for yoga teachers is also for me, not so much as like launching something for yoga. Personally, I'm launching a farm market, an urban farm market. And I'm feeling all the feelings of like that procrastination, the overwhelm, the like, oh my gosh, can I get this all done? Like there's so many things, feeling a little bit nervous, like, oh my gosh, what if I fail? And it's the same as launching like a new yoga class, a new website, a workshop, a membership, a training, a studio, a retreat. And so I thought, let's dig into this together. Because I have a lot of experience with like jumping in, not being sure, not feeling totally ready. And so far, it's worked. I'll get into that in a minute. I also want to give a huge shout out of thank you to OfferingTree, who makes this episode possible. I use and love this software in my own business. And I just got to be part of a call with someone today who just built their website. Wow. It was a consultation call. I'm going to bring them on the podcast so that they can chat more about what they've built, because I think it's a really inspiring story. But seeing their website built so quickly on OfferingTree and seeing their video library growing as they're putting classes up there, classes that they were already teaching and had so many videos for. It's really something. I'm very excited to see it happening in real time. If you are looking for a platform and you're like, I need a website, I need a place to store my online videos, go to offeringtree.com/Shannon to get a discount. And also I learned today that you can sign up for some help with your OfferingTree website. So this person had like built the bare bones of it there, and then they had some more questions, and they just hired an expert at building OfferingTree sites through OfferingTree for a couple of hours. And I just love the difference in the website. It looks amazing. I will be talking more about that in another episode. So make sure you're subscribed to our episode so that you don't miss that one. Okay, let's get into this. So the inspiration, as I said, for this episode came out of my own fears, my own like procrastination. And then finally I was like, okay, what would I be telling someone that I was working with if they had a big idea that was like bubbling away in them that requires a big leap, a big like push to do something new? And I want to say, like, I've done this for most of my life. So I guess I'm not saying that like I know everything. I'm telling you, like, I keep taking big leaps of faith and just like throwing it out there and seeing like, and I still, this time I feel the fear almost more than ever. And I'll be 49 this year. Like, what's happening with that? Some of the leaps that I've already taken. So I've been a parent for over 26 years now. And now for me, this feels like a huge leap of faith to like, let's birth new humans into the world. Now, this is a normalized leap by society standards, but wow, like nothing can prepare you for the work and learning and quote unquote failure that is ahead of you on a parenting journey. If you have kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So maybe if you're like, oh gosh, I need to take this leap and I've never done that before. Well, are you a parent? Because you have done it before. You've taken a huge leap. Personally, I've also been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. And all along the way, I have still felt scared and unsure of the outcome and like kind of dragging my heels when there's a big leap ahead of me. So how many years ago now? Gosh, Colton was little. I could hold Colton on my hip and now he's 22. So yeah, over 20 years ago, I opened a farmer's market. I also became a yoga teacher. I built a business of teaching yoga, doing Thai yoga massage, managing yoga studios, leading yoga teacher trainings so that I could support myself and my 3 kids after my separation. I built a thriving one-on-one yoga business where I got hired by a local physio office. And I worked specifically with pelvic health clients, but also in concussion recovery. That led me to like take the leap and found Pelvic Health Professionals, this online membership that ran for 5 years. And I just sold it this year. And then this podcast, I launched it 8 years ago. We're almost getting close to episode 400, which is wild. And I've shared many of my offerings here. Like, even if they're small ones, even if like think back to 2020 where it was like every yoga teacher wanted to sign up to learn how to teach yoga online. That was a new thing for me. I'd been teaching yoga online, but then to package this training and put it out there and launch it. So I got thinking this week, like, why the heck is it feeling scary for me right now as I take this like next leap at starting a small farmer's market? Like, what is going on with that? I've already run a farm market. Like, I know I have lots of garden knowledge, not that it's not just like never ending, but I still feel that like doubt, imposter syndrome. I still like procrastinate or like put things off, and I still feel the overwhelm creep in. So if you have like a big dream that is calling you, or this idea is bubbling up and you're feeling doubt and you're wondering like, where do I even begin? There's all these things that need to happen. Let's just pause here together. We're in this together. Let's take a breath here together. And this pep talk really is for both of us. It's not just me talking at you. It's me in it, feeling it right at the same time as you. Okay, so how do you know that it's the right time to take a big leap or launch something new? Personally, I feel like when I get this idea and it won't go away, I don't have to write it down. I just keep coming back to it. I might be journaling lots about it. It just keeps coming back no matter what. That's when I know. I also know when I feel excited, when I am imagining this new thing. So maybe you're a yoga teacher and you think about sharing a yoga series like Yoga for Sleep, where you combine everything you've used and learned over the years to sleep better in your own life, or maybe you've worked with others who have better sleep because of yoga, and you just think, wow, this would really help way more people if I could package it up and get it out there. Or maybe you have this vision of like being in community, like sitting in a circle of people on retreat, sharing yoga, sharing meals together, finding adventures, and the idea just will not leave you. Because let me just say, I have ideas all the time, like literally all the time. I'll be like, yeah, this is the new thing. But when they really stick and they just keep coming back, that's when I know, okay, this is one that I really have to listen to. So for the past 2 years, I keep feeling like every conversation I'm having with people keeps bringing me back to like nature, gardening, growing veggies, medicinal plants, herbs, native plants. That's where I'm really excited and passionate. And it can be a conversation that doesn't seem related to that. And my brain is like making those connections. And personally, for me, when there are questions that arise, and, even today, someone was telling me how connected to their phone everyone is. And I just think, one way we could have less of that is if we had like some kind of garden time together and we're out growing together and we're working in the soil together and we're not looking at our phones and we're doing it in community or by ourselves. It's like the answer keeps coming back as, for me, being out working on the land or being part of the land or, time on the land. And I remember feeling this way about yoga so much, like when yoga made a big impact in my life. And then when I saw the impact it was making with people I was working with, like really, then I got more specific about yoga for pregnancy and postnatal yoga and pelvic health yoga. Like all of those things really captured my attention like this. And some people, and I'm included in this group, this dreaming, planning, wishing stage can be a nice place to just hang out. Where you do you ever have those friends who just show you like tons of photos on Pinterest? Or are you one of those people? I'm not really that into Pinterest, but I have other friends that do this, where they're just like capturing images that show this. Or maybe you've created a vision board where you've cut clippings out of magazines, or you make big lists, or you just like think about it all the time, but you're not doing something. This can be a good indicator that it's time to like take the leap, do the thing. And it doesn't mean, let's say you have this vision of building a huge yoga center or like a full-on yoga studio. It doesn't mean that you do all the steps today for that. There can be small baby steps that you do. But if you keep having these thoughts, it's likely time to build something to go along with it. And I always said with the podcast, when people are like, how do you know it's time to launch a podcast? I was like, when your message gets bigger than your fears, it's time, because that's what one of my business coaches told me over 8 years ago. And what you're offering right now is likely needed in this moment. Now, if you were like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something really slimy. If you were like, well, I'm going to build this thing that like hurts the planet or hurts people more, or like just is all about consumerism. And I'm trying to think of a really horrible example without offending people. But if you said to me, I want to create more plastic in the world, I might be like, is this needed in the moment? But I know if you've listened this far in the podcast and you're a returning listener, you have an offering that can make a real difference in this world. I know it. So now you're probably thinking, okay, I've got the motivation to like do the thing, but where do I even start? And this is the part that I get so much, especially when the to-do list is so long, like you might not have even written it down. It's too overwhelming. I want to say, even if it is the tiniest baby step, do one thing today. So you might go visit a yoga studio that you've been thinking about teaching at, and go take a class and see if it's a good fit for you. Just taking the class with the thought of like, well, let's see if this is a space where I would want to teach a workshop or a class. You might write a social media post or an email sharing your next yoga offering and telling people how to sign up. So you might have it all planned out, but you need to like launch it out into the world. You might put a sticky note up or do my sticky note method for your next yoga teacher training or your workshop or whatever you're running. And then sit and look at those sticky notes until you figure out, okay, how can I fill these spots? How can I get more people into my offering? This one really works. So if you want to hear way more about the sticky note method, I talk about it in episode 180. We can link to that in the show notes. Now, if you're feeling reluctant to take a small, tiny step at any point along the way, I want you to pause for a moment. Maybe we take another breath together here. And I want you to think back to what you've already done to prepare for this moment. So maybe that's yoga teacher training. Maybe it's how much experience you have teaching yoga, sharing it with the community. Maybe you have the skills. Maybe some of those skills are like, well, I'm really great at teaching people in this way, or I'm really great at connecting people. Think of the skills that you have. So you have the skills. You've prepared for this. Even though you're not quite feeling prepared, I get it. That's normal. But I want you to just reflect on how you are prepared. You have lots of skills. That doesn't mean that you're not going to learn more and you don't need more skills and you'll build that as you go. But that's another thing that's saying, okay, it's time to take a leap. And if you start thinking right now in this moment, like, well, maybe if I took another yoga teacher training, then I'd feel ready. Please go and listen to episode 319. Possibly also listen to episode 318 if you're very close to registering for a yoga teacher training or some other kind of training. Often when we hit this like, oh gosh, I'm doubting myself, I'm overwhelmed, we immediately jump to thinking that we need more training. Very seldom is this the case. So it's usually not, the next step is not to take another yoga teacher training. So go have a listen to episode 319. If you're all of a sudden like online searching for more education or more training to feel ready to launch the thing. Now, if you feel like you don't know where to begin or you feel overwhelmed with all that needs to be done in order to get this out into the world, think of how you teach yoga. You don't dump all the information onto your students as you guide them into a pose or a series. You mindfully guide them. Like you guide them so well that you're like, place your right hand here. Do this with your left foot. Notice, like you guide such tiny, tiny steps into poses. If it helps to think of another analogy, think about gardening. Think how a garden is planted. Like it's not all planted all at once. It is like one seed at a time. So let's map out some of the steps. I like to put this down on paper. I like to use a pen and write it out. That doesn't mean that I don't like putting it on the computer as well. Like I do this on Trello. Sometimes I do it on Google Docs. But you really see what's a good fit for you. Like what's your style of getting this down? So some small steps, let's say you're putting a yoga offering together. You might be setting the price of your offer. And that might throw you into a little spin. Just don't worry. You don't have to finalize it today. Just jot some things down about the price. Think about it. You might be researching a studio in the area where you want to teach. You might be creating a Facebook event or maybe an Instagram post with all of the details of your event. You might write out the class themes for your 6-week series. You might get your offering on your website. Now, if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a website, I'm freaking out. I want to pause here and tell you like one thing that I have found to be so helpful for myself when I'm putting any yoga offering online, but also for the yoga teachers that I've worked with, is to use something like OfferingTree. To me, it's the easiest one out there. It's really built for yoga teachers and studios. And it asks you all of the information. Like the website is easy to set up, super easy. If you don't have a website, go over to OfferingTree.com/Shannon. You can sign up for a website, create very bare bones website, and get your offerings up there. What I love the most about this is, let's say you go to put a yoga series in. It's just going to ask you for the basic things. Like you can start to plug it in there. That way you don't forget anything. Like, how do people sign up? How do they pay online? How long do they have access to that, whatever it is that you're offering? Like if it's online, are you launching something that's a registered series or a 10-class pass? It can handle all of that for you. And it simplifies it. It doesn't have to be, you go to a website page and there's like this moving thing and this other really complicated thing. Like, get the bare bones together, get the details together of that offering. Like I said, sign up for OfferingTree if you're looking at how to take online payments, how to create a website, if you're looking for Zoom integration, all kinds of things to help your business. There's also a 14-day trial, and then we have a discount code for you. That's over at OfferingTree.com/Shannon. So I just wanted to plug that in here. One, because OfferingTree is amazing at like supporting the podcast, but also it's because I talk about them all the time anyway. Okay. So when you're taking this small step and you're like, okay, there's the small step that I'm going to do today, probably doubt and fear is going to creep in. So I felt this really strongly today. And I took this small step of planting some seeds in my garden. And I loved doing it. Oh my gosh, I don't know if my neighbors saw me, but like I had my music playing. I love my garden tools. Like I've been away from my garden tools since November when the snow started flying here. And so to just feel like, oh, these are my garden tools and I'm like planting seeds, like, wow. It is a job. It's a small step that is like full of possibility, full of hope, and like literally full of growth. And still, my mind was like spinning a little bit. It was saying like, hey, Shannon, what if? What if this doesn't grow well? What if the weather's terrible for the garden this year? This is like the worst year. And now you've picked this year to like launch something new with the garden and really try to move this into like from hobby to business. What if no one wants to buy fresh organic veggies? What if, you only grow enough for your own household and you don't grow enough? And what's underneath all of this is the fear of failing. And I want you to know that it is completely normal to feel and think this way. To feel like, oh my gosh, what if I fail? So this happens to me every time I go to launch something new. And then think back to any time in your life when you've quote unquote failed. What did you learn from that? Because failure or being wrong on something is literally just feedback. It's just more learning so we can do better. My dad, who's been making maple syrup for over 50 years, always tells people, if you haven't burned maple syrup at some point, you likely aren't a maple syrup maker. You probably haven't made maple syrup. And I love when he says this because I've never seen him burn the syrup, but he tells me about times when he has, or my grandpa did. They both seem like expert syrup producers who would never do this. Or he tells me about times when it got really close and he knew because of past experience. And it's really hard for me to imagine this happening, but I love that he shares this story because they both seem like experts in my eyes. And it's the same with yoga. We've all run a class or a workshop or a training and had low numbers, or we go to teach somewhere and we're like, oh my gosh, that was the worst decision ever to move my class to that place. I remember how my friend Betty, who's been a guest on this podcast, when she was the only student in my yoga class for so long. So every yoga teacher has had a class that didn't fill, or a retreat that they had to cancel, or offerings where they barely broke even. And so it's up to us to then take that feedback, learn from it, refine your offering, make some tweaks, and keep going. And that's where the magic happens. And I want you to remember that the only way you can actually fail with all of this, do you know? Do you know the only way that you can fail? It's to not try. So imagine for a moment if you didn't build this thing. If you're like, it's too scary. I can't do it. I can't even do a small version of it. I can't do a baby step, nothing. I'm not even going to try. That's the only way you can fail at something. Everything else is learning and growing, and it might feel really messy and really scary, but it's not failing, actually. Failing or making a mistake isn't the opposite of success. It's actually part of it. If you're like, ooh, I put this yoga class out and some people might see it as a fail because only 2 people signed up. Well, that's not failure. Like, you tried this thing, okay, and then you learned how to make it better. Or what could you do to make it better? Every successful yoga teacher you admire has made mistakes. They learned, they tweaked their offering, they kept going. The other thing to consider is collaborations and connections. So I've been working with a yoga teacher who was wanting to launch a membership site, and she's built this amazing online yoga business with fantastic students. And so it was easy for her to reach out to her students first and see what they had in mind for the membership. She was able to connect with the people right in front of her first and really say, like, how can I build this so that it really serves what you need? Another idea is to collaborate with maybe another yoga teacher. Maybe you want to run a workshop with someone else at first, or you might want to find another yoga teacher to be your accountability buddy. So it might not be that you're in partnership together, because that's a whole other thing. Just this week, I told my good friend Ray that I needed a social media break. My concussion symptoms were increasing because I was increasing my work hours. If you're like, what is Shannon talking about with a concussion? I did a recent podcast. You can go back and have a listen to it. And so I needed a break from screens for just like a week. And I was struggling to start. And Ray just left me a message and was like, let's start on Tuesday. So Ray said, this is when I'm starting my social media break. And they invited me to join. And it was the best nudge. So that's where an accountability friend can really make a difference. Something else that can really help, and this is one that I struggle with. So I'm not good at this step, but it definitely is part of making things work, is to find a way to mark and celebrate wins, even if they're tiny, tiny, small ones. And so because I suck at this one, I'd love to hear some examples of wins that you have experienced recently and you're celebrating in some way. So in summary, dear yoga teacher, you have the skills, you have this fantastic idea, the passion, the knowledge, and everything needed to create this very meaningful thing. So don't let your fears and overwhelm hold you back. I hope that this pep talk has offered some motivation to take one small step and then keep going. If you're about to launch something new, I want to hear about it. Send me a voice message. You can do that from our website page, or tag me in our Facebook group. You can also find that from our homepage of our website. That's theconnectedyogateacher.com. And lastly, I want to say, if you think the world needs more yoga right now, I fully agree. This is something that's needed, that you are putting together an offering that is going to help people and serve people. Okay, all of the notes for today's episode are over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/394. So if I talked about an episode, you can find it there. And stay tuned. I also have another idea that just is not leaving me right now. And it's something that I'm thinking about launching online. We'd get together in person. I'm like really hesitating because I'm not ready to tell you what it is yet. I'm like, maybe I should. Basically, stay tuned here and I'll let you know. This is where you'll know first is on the podcast if I'm putting an offering together. I have a little note here, like anytime I'm like launching an event or doing something, I'll put it here in the episode. I mean, this summer you can come and find me at my farmer's market. If you do want to do that, let me know and I'll give you directions on how to get there. Okay, I want to thank our incredible team who brings this podcast to life each and every week. And I also want to thank you, dear listener, because you're the heart of this podcast. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm so grateful we're in this together. And before I wrap up, I want to close with a question. What will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, to your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?